This is Shop Talk Area, brought to you by Impressions Magazine and the show, and the Ink Kitchen, which is an online resource for printers and decorators of all kind. Free information, inkkitchen.com. I want to thank our sponsors, Hanes, Hirsch, who are here a couple rows over. We're going to have a talk here by Bill Garvin, BG Tech Services. He repairs and services and does preventive maintenance, which he likes to do best, on embroidery machines of all kinds. And we're going to talk about difficult placements and difficult substrates to embroider. And he's going to talk for a bit, and then we're going to have questions. So thank you for attending here.
Thank you, Rick, for having me. Good morning, everybody. No. Good morning, everybody. That's better. If you're going to listen to me, you better be awake, okay? Like you said, I'm Bill Garvin. This morning we're going to talk about hard-to-hoop substrates, okay, garment placements. So let's start with placements for a minute. So the first thing is basically you're going to hoop and sew on any type of garment there is, wherever a customer requests for you to have it at, correct? There's sleeve placements. There's left chest, there's right chest, there's center backs. Pretty much anywhere that you can hoop, it can be embroidered, right? Now, a couple of tricks I've learned over the years, when you're working with your common polos, basically your unisex polos, okay? If you're not sure where the left chest placement is, the perfect example is the polo that I'm wearing right now. All you ever need to go by, if it is a 3-button placket, okay, meaning there's 3 buttons on the placket, you go by the 3rd button down. That is center position for the left chest as far as the height on the garment goes. So you bring that over. The next, what you do is you take the neckline where the seam meets the neckline and you bring it down. If you triangulate those 2 points, that gives you the correct placement for left chest on pretty much any garment that you would embroider. Now, the same little trick applies, okay? What you do is, let's say we're doing a lot of hoodies, for example, something that doesn't have buttons on it, okay? What you're going to do, and this worked for me in the 90s when I learned this little trick, is, if you got a good hooping device that you can pull your shirts onto, it's all about finding that first placement, getting the first placement correct, and then after that, it's all about production and speed, right? So what I learned, whether it was my youth apparel and the T-shirts, and they were 14, 16 extra large youth shirts, adult mediums, men's 4Xs, like what I'm wearing right now. I'm not a small fella, right? Okay. This works no matter what hoodie, what T-shirt, or anything you're doing. What you do is you take the sleeve of the garment. So think about what I'm getting ready to tell you. You find the center of the shoulder up here, right? And then you find the center of the armpit down there. The center of those 2 positions, and then come back down off the neckline like I told you. Now you don't need buttons or plackets or anything to go by. That'll be the correct position for your left chest. Word of advice for placement of embroidery on left chest. If you're not 100% sure, you are better to be too high than too low. You'll get away with it. Okay, you are better to be too close to the center than too far out. Because the last thing you want is to be having a conversation with somebody. We all like to cross our arms and, really get into the conversation. We don't want the logo tucked inside my armpit, right? We want to see that logo. That's what everybody's paying for, right? On sleeve placements, this is all about your hooping and placement. Most of the time on my sleeves, I never try to hoop the entire sleeve. What's important is that you hoop completely all of the backing. That is the stabilizer that you're doing, okay? I normally try to hoop my sleeves close to center of the hoops to 2/3 of the way down on the hoop, especially if you're using your conventional compress hoops that comes with your equipment. The largest sewing field is where? In the center of the hoop. So when you try to embroider too low, the trick I always use for the straight line is most of your hoops have the arms on each side. This is what snaps into your machines. Those become your straight line. Sometimes the trick on the back of hats, for example, the ones that are arched, they're Velcro snapbacks. Believe it or not, a Sharpie works amazing. Once you get the first one hoop right, mark the inside of the bottom ring of the hoops with a Sharpie. And now you've got a reference point that you can just hoop and sew without tracing every single one of those logos and keeping that design in production, and even across a multi-head machine. That makes sense? Later, if you don't want the Sharpie mark on there, it's called goof off. It'll rub right off, I promise you. It's just plastic is all it is, okay? Now, other than that, I did stop by the Hoopmaster booth a little bit earlier. They're in booth 609, by the way. Who has Mighty Hoops right now? All right? How do you like them? Pretty good, aren't they? I was joking in class yesterday. I tell people, keep your hand in the air. That way everybody that doesn't have one, I ask one question after that. I'm like, if you've only ever bought just one, put your hand down. Nobody puts their hand down, okay? These things are basically worth their weight in gold. They've been out for over 10 years now, and I usually tell most of my clients, once you start with these are investments in equipment. I know they're expensive, but they will outlast your equipment. You'll be keeping these, trading your machines in, and just replacing the arm brackets on them, right? Now, there is some things and stuff that you may need to embroider that's a little bit thicker that this possibly can't handle. A good example is I got a lot of customers that do equestrian stuff. When you start doing those saddle pads and things like that, even these magnets can't go through the thickness of those. Now, for that reason, I normally recommend that you use a clamping system. And the number one out there for that is the Hoop Tech brand. I was going to sneak by their booth and pick up a clamp so I could show it to you, but they're not here. But if you go to hooptech.com, you can look at their product line and stuff like that. So if you do a lot of things like luggage, things that require a lot of weight, you can't get around, the magnetic hoops are perfect for those hard substrate items as far as backpacks with zippers. You know how you always got to go to that smaller hoop, right? And then you got to shrink the logo so it doesn't look as good. These things hoop right through the zipper because it's not a compression hoop. Does that make sense? Therefore, you can keep the regular 3.5, 4-inch logo and go right on those bags. Tote bags that has the braids on them. These will normally go through that. Up north, it's the Carhartt jackets. They're really plush items that's really hard for you to get inside of compressed hoops without you feeling like you need to go to an orthopedic surgeon, after a day of production and embroidery, right? Your wrists are killing you, your elbows are killing you, all of that stuff. Not right or wrong, but I usually tell people when you start with this, be careful. I refer to these as the crack cocaine of the embroidery industry. Once you start, you're addicted. Okay, so just a real quick example of what I want to tell you about these. First is these are extremely strong earth magnets, okay, and they have warnings on them. One is a pinch warning. The other one is a pacemaker warning, and you have to take those warnings very, very seriously. First time I ever got these and tried them about 9 years ago, I left them sitting on top of my briefcase. Luckily, my laptop wasn't in it, but all my thumb drives was, and I couldn't figure out for 2 weeks why none of my thumb drives would work anymore. It even destroyed my security key for my embroidery software.
Wow.
Keep these in a safe place, okay, not around electronics. Rick, hold my cell phone or microphone there for just a second, okay? So what I want to do is just give you just a brief example of how this works. Watch this. Stick your finger in there. No. Come on. You can do it. No? These things pretty much hoop themselves, and the first time I tried one, I got a blood blister, okay? So seriously, this is how strong these things are. They'll literally hoop themselves, okay? So there is always a trick. So a smart person told me one time there's only 2 tricks to embroidery, okay? If you learn these 2 tricks, you can be successful. Number 1, if you figure out how to hoop it, you can sew it. Number 2, if you figure out number 1, there is no number 2. Does that make sense? Now, to touch on one other subject real quick as far as hard substrate items, there is a lot of times, and I deal with this because I'm a digitizer as well. We offer digitizing services primarily to my own customer base, which has grown pretty large over the last 11 years. Growing my own business. Close to 2,000 active customers right now. We service on average about 80 clients per month around the East Coast and the Caribbean. Our bread and butter is, servicing and repairing your equipment. My best advice is preventive maintenance. not repairs. Don't wait until your machine is broke down or worn out before you're willing to invest money into it. This equipment is your past, your present, and your future. So you have to invest in it on an annual basis, just like you do your vehicles, just like you do your home, just like you do your marriage. Okay? We're in it for the long run. All right. Now, there is a few items that we deal with as far as digitizing and customer sewing. We got a lot of people that'll do like fine linens or sashes, things that are very delicate fabrics. So you got to be very careful, one, on the hooping, okay? Now, if you don't have an investment in some type of magnetic hoops or clamping system or something like that, little tricks we used is medical tape. You can take your conventional compression hoops, right? Take your outer ring, the one that's adjustable, and you wrap it with medical tape. And so instead of getting the rings that can damage that delicate fabrics, it gives you a soft cushion to compress against that material. When embroidering on that material, you'll find that it wants to penetrate and create holes or runs in the material. Okay, the trick to that material is kind of like leather. The trick to leather is decreasing the density of the design. You have to leave material in there for the substrate to stay intact, is what it boils down to. On the fine linens and stuff, what you want to do is the same. Slightly decrease the density, maybe 5%, but it's also another reason why there's different size needles in the industry. On those really delicate fabrics, the ones that don't want to sew real well, you want to use a smaller needle. Go down to a 70-10, maybe a 65-9. Stay with the 40 weight thread. If it's really fine detail, you want it to be crisper and cleaner, then absolutely. Go down to the 60 weight thread. Small thread, small needle, smaller hole, better detail. Makes sense when you think about it, right? Okay. Another shirt that kind of drive people crazy nowadays, moisture management wicking shirts, they pucker like crazy. It's all about the stabilizer, the backing, the hooping, even the underlay plays a big factor in that. But in the last couple of years, they started doing these shirts in sublimation. Well, sublimated 100% polyester shirt, do y'all know what color it is on the inside? White. So when you embroider it, what do you get? White edges all around the embroidery, and it really looks bad when you're doing the taglines in the text, right? The trick to that is what I just told you. Decrease the density. Go to the smaller needle, punches smaller holes. It separates less of those weaves, so it's not as noticeable. Are you going to get rid of it 100%? No. You may want to try some type of silk screening. You may want to try some type of vinyl printing on that, but if they want embroidery, there's always a trick to it, and my advice is sometimes the smaller thread and smaller needle. I'll have customers will digitize a design, they'll send a picture, and they'll be, Bill, is there anything we could do a little better? And I'll be like, just go to a smaller needle. He sends me a different picture, and it's 2-to-1 better. Is it still there? Yeah, it's a sublimated process.
Transfers are a good solution sometimes.
Transfers are a great solution for
today,
that.
I think at 3 o'clock, if you want to come by, we're going to talk about transfer technology. So that's another answer. More and more people want their items decorated. They don't care how you do it. So you have to figure out all these different things.
Yep, pretty much. It's, the more you can offer, the better chances those customers aren't going looking somewhere else at any point in time. All right, guys. Now, does anybody have any specific questions for me? This is only a little 20-minute seminar. Yes, sir. Yep.
So the question is, earlier Bill mentioned lining up by the shoulder seam and the placket of the shirt or the third button. Is that the center, or where exactly is that, is the question?
Well, and he was also referring to where he does his placements with the DTG. So the truth is, if you're doing a left chest logo, whether you're direct-to-garment, whether you're sublimation, whether you're screen printing, embroidery, it's going to be in the same position to look right. right? But everything is based off the center position. So that center, if I had a 4x4 logo, that center position would be the center of a 2-inch down, 2-inch over, 2-inch up type of situation. And to touch back again, I think I didn't mention the two button shirts. Those are normally the lesser and expensive shirts that we deal with. Those are normally our jersey knits, the 50-50 blends. These things cost you $12. The other ones cost you $4. The same process applies. If it was a third button, the third button would actually exist on the platen. So you actually go off the platen on a 2-button and the exact same triangulation to get that placement. There's a lot of other good things out there too. Hoop Tech carries them. I think Mighty Hoops carries them. There's a lot of customers, even with the DTGs and stuff. There's a lot of laser systems that I'm starting to see more and more on equipment. Everything from stalls on your Hottronics heat presses to direct-to-garment printing to embroidery placement, hooping devices, things like that. Those come in pretty handy as well.
Yeah, we have them on our screen printing machines, and we have them on our DTG as well. Yeah, I think they may even have them at the Hirsch booth to show for DTG.
All right. Any other questions?
All right, Bill Garvin, thank you very much.
Yep, not a problem.
I want to thank Hanes and Hirsch, and there's a whole schedule back there if you want to check out more shop talks. Thanks for coming to the In Kitchen Shop Talk.